each of you knew just a small facet of his life. What I've attempted in this short video is to show you who the uncle, neighbor, friend, and senior DME you knew actually was. Jose Manuel Diaz was born on the 27th of August 1933 and was the second child born to Manuel Stanislaus and Anne. But I'm sure that if you ever called him by this name, he wouldn't have responded at all, as he was only known as Joseph, Joe, or just J. M. Dias. Mum was so indignant when once, based on the varied names in the records, she was asked if she was married to one or to four different men. Joe was destined to be a mechanical engineer. Every Christmas, the entire neighborhood would be awakened with wails and cries of his elder sister Teresa. After destroying his new toys to see how they worked, he would go about methodically dismantling her toys, breaking off the heads of her new dolls, just to see how the eyes opened and shut without manual intervention. All this commotion would be followed by the horrified looks of his dad. Upon seeing all the new toys ruined, it would be reason enough for Joe to get a sound thrashing. His family enjoyed a lavish lifestyle and were one of the few families who were invited and were part of the then almost all European Limpus Club of Busaval. Joe had two siblings, Proctor and Anaclet, who unfortunately died in early childhood. Then came along Philomena, more commonly known as Phila, and Edward, known as Eddie. Joe was sent to the boarding at St. Aloysius, Jabalpur, and topped in his junior and senior Cambridge, and thus earned a full scholarship at the St. Xavier's College in Mumbai. However, tragedy struck, and a day after Christmas in 1950, Joe lost his dad due to a massive heart attack. At the tender age of 17, he had to shoulder the responsibilities of being the man of the house and the provider for not only his widowed mother, his siblings, Phila, who was just 11, and Eddie, who had turned 9 that month. In addition to it, Manuel was very kind and generous and took upon himself to look after his two sisters in law who were childless, without any means of support, and were widowed at a very young age. Joe dropped out of college, much to the dismay of Father Balaguer, the principal of St. Xavier's, and took a job as an apprentice in the railways. He would hand over his entire salary to his mother every single month, and daily he would ask her for just enough money to buy himself a cup of tea when at work. He, however, took upon himself to see that both his siblings were Class 1 boarders, Eddie at the St. Francis de Sales School and Phila at the St. Joseph's Convent, Nagpur. At the railways, Joe excelled due to his dedication, hard work, aptitude, and attitude. He topped every departmental exam and rose up the ranks and soon superseded not only his peers, but even those who were more than twice his age. He did his engineering from the railways and 2 decades later was the principal of the Zonal Training School at Jhansi, where the lecturers who taught him now reported to him. All this did not give him much time to find himself a wife, and at Nagpur there was a similar situation with one Gladys Ferns, who was a star track and field athlete who held various track and field records for the Life Insurance Corporation. Between working, flying, doing a double post graduation, and representing the state and country for hockey, she had no time to find herself a husband. Destiny brought them together, and a match was arranged. On the 19th of March, which is Gladys's birthday, the two of them were engaged. He would often grind his teeth and remind us that it was also Lent, and this was the first time he ever broke his Lenten observance to attend a party. From the designing of the J's and G's which are carried by the bridesmaids to the designing of the cake, everything was meticulously planned. In fact, long before fondant was in vogue, this cake had the top tier with an engine on the railway tracks on one side and a girl running on the athletic track on the other side. I'm sure the producers of Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge drew inspiration of that iconic scene from Joe and Gladys's wedding cake. This cake was specially ordered from McConnell's Mumbai, and Joe booked a whole wagon to transport this and his guests from Mumbai and Bhusawal to Nagpur for the wedding. Joe and Gladys took their wedding vows very seriously. In the 53 years of their married life, I have never heard them arguing, fighting, or even raising their voices at each other. He would joke that a mouse could never dream of picking a fight with a lioness. Joe would miss out on our annual day functions, our prize distributions, even our first communion. But never, ever in his 53 years of married life did he miss spending the 19th of March with Gladys for her birthday. The bond was so strong between them, it used to be infuriating that every time she fell ill, he would invariably fall ill too. For that matter, a year after their marriage, my brother Noel was born, and I came along 4 years post that. I was told that people were confused as to which one was in labor, my dad or my mom. Dad loved greenery, plants of every kind, and thanks to the position he held in the railways, not only did he have sprawling railway quarters, but also several staff and gardeners to tend to the household tasks and the land. In fact, in Bhusawal, on the 1st of May, the feast of St. Joseph the Worker, there would be the feeding of the poor, and the vegetables, as well as the pulses used during this, were the produce of our garden. Long before Amazon Pantry came into the picture, Dad had his own version of e commerce. From the early 80s, he would call up the various stores, find out the availability, read out the list, and have one of the orderlies pick up what was needed. He never understood why we would want to choose a color, design, or shape when the functionality was exactly the same. Right from the 70s, thanks to his men who would travel to the various cities, Dad would send huge suitcases full of vegetables and fruits to his relatives and friends from whichever corner of the country he was in. It would bring him immense joy to distribute seafood and various delicacies to our friends and family brought all the way from Mumbai, Agra, Delhi, Goa, or Kolkata, just to name a few places, to whichever place he was posted. Dad was extremely helpful. Once, a circus came to Basawal, and as a part of the machinery which was used by the contortionists to hold between their teeth when they spun had broken, the circus management was at a loss as to what they could do. Remember, this was 1971, and to repair the part, the management was told it would need to be sent to Mumbai, repaired and brought back. This entire process would take around a week. As luck would have it, someone suggested to them that they meet a Mr. Joe Dias. Dad looked at the part, understood how it worked, told them to come a few hours later. They were amazed. The part worked perfectly and more efficiently now. As a show of their gratitude, our family was given free access to watch the circus daily, as well as all the practice shows, and were given refreshments to boot. This was thoroughly enjoyed by my 3-year-old brother Noel, who would be accompanied by the orderly. Noel never missed going to the circus for the first show of the day and each and every practice show. Dad's helpful attitude, combined with the position he held in the railways, was the reason that everyone who knew someone who knew him would come to Dad and request for a VIP quota if they were unable to get a train reservation. For those who knew Dad personally, not only would this reservation be given, but at periodic intervals during the journey, when the train stopped at major stations, hot meals and a thermos of tea would be provided as well. And this would not be the usual tea you get at the normal stations. Wherever he was posted, Dad ensured that he got on as many boys and girls as he could into the railways. It was easier for him, not only because he was the senior divisional mechanical engineer, but he was the sports officer as well. This allowed him to take on youth on the sports quota as well as the Boy Scout quota. He made it his mission to help widows not only to get their pension, which was due to them, without them having to run from pillar to post, but would ensure that either they or one of their kids would be absorbed into the railways on compassionate grounds. Christmas Day was an extremely busy day for us, as that was the one day when Dad would host a party for his supervisors and foremen. The house would be full of at least 200 to 250 people who he would host for the entire day, mainly as a thanksgiving to them for all that they did throughout the year. Perhaps what gave him the most pride was the Black Beauty contest. It was a contest among the various divisions of the railways for the best decorated and the most well maintained steam engine. He always ensured that his division bagged the first place. When it came to critical projects, his was the first name that came to mind. That is why he was deputed to the Mining and Alloyed Machinery Corporation, or the MAMC, in Goa to set up the stackers and reclaimers to automate the transportation of iron ore to the ships. His work was recognized, and for his service, he was awarded a medal by the President of India. From the early days of his career, he was the disaster management specialist. This was long before disaster management was even known. And wherever there was an accident or a derailment, Dad was called. He was personally He personally, with his trusted crew, was given an hour to reach the station where they would be taken to the accident site. There they would extricate bodies and torn limbs, cut through twisted metal, and finally clear the tracks to allow the passage of other trains. Many a time he'd be covered in blood and gore, but he never stopped working to save those who could be saved. There were several days when, sustained by only cigarettes and tea, he worked around the clock for a straight 72 hours before collapsing in exhaustion. There were so many incidents that he would narrate. One incident could well be in a typical Clint Eastwood movie. When he was young, there was a train bogie which was hanging precariously over the Vartha River. All the passengers were pulled out when the sound of a baby crying was heard from the dangling bogie. He and his foreman crawled in and extricated the child just in time before the whole bogie fell into the river. That incident would give him nightmares for years, and it was only when my brother Noel was born and he would hear a baby cry at all hours that those nightmares slowly started to fade. He was extremely upright and honest, refused to take bribes, and that resulted in him angering quite a few people, including politicians. This resulted in him being transferred all of 27 times during his tenure of 40 years with the railways. Mum often complained she felt like a cat moving her kittens from one place to another. The railways was such a huge part of his life for 40 years that on his retirement, his subordinates gave him and Mum garlands to exchange, as they said that it would be only from that day that she would finally get to be married to him rather than him being married to the railways. His second innings was as a grandfather to Joseph, Anastasia, and Isabel. A more doting grandfather I have never seen. There was nothing which they asked, wanted, needed, or even desired secretly which was not fulfilled immediately. When they were ill or hospitalized, he would stay the entire duration with them, never leaving their side or even going home till they were finally discharged. He was a great orator, thanks to his ready wit and humor, all delivered with a deadpan expression. Once he was asked to say a few words at a function at my office, and he said, "My daughter is always on the laptop, but I would rather she be on the laptop than on top of someone's lap." He was called to raise the toast for several weddings, speak for scores of occasions, and even compare diverse functions. His favorite line after quoting an excerpt from a poem would be, "After hearing a poem by Longfellow, here's some prose by this short fellow." As he was exposed for 4 decades to the sound of the steam, diesel, and electric engines, it took a whole toll on his hearing. But even that he used to his own advantage. He either never used to put on his hearing aid or conveniently would turn it off if he did not want to participate in the conversation. That is perhaps the reason why we have no secrets, as our neighbors for the past few years could hear every conversation that we had, thanks to the decibel levels we used to use. Dad never forgot his roots or the struggles he faced after losing his father. Every year, he would sponsor the first communion expenses of a child, preferably a fatherless one, starting from the wreath, veil, dress, right down to the shoes and socks. Not satisfied with that, he would also hand over a sum of money so that the mother could host a party for the child to make that day special. He refused to attend these parties as he did not want the child to know that charity was done. There are scores of churches in small rural areas which have tabernacles or main crucifixes donated by him. For decades, he was one of the benefactors of the Salesians and the MSFS. Many priests were given a purse when they were to proceed for their annual holiday to their home. For the past several years now, he had turned deeply religious and would say at least 2 to 3 rosaries a day. If someone requested him to pray for them or their families, he would take it very seriously and devote a special rosary for their intention. Thanks to the online Mass telecasted, he would participate daily. His love for the railways had given him wanderlust. He was happiest when he was holidaying, visiting new places, studying the history, culture, customs, and background of the place or the country. He made very good friends wherever he went and with whomever he met. He was never expressive and not the kind to say, "I love you." The only way he knew to show his love was to stuff you to the gills. The amount of edible stuff or food he gave you was directly proportional to how much you meant to him. He loved good food, and on the dinner table, the main topic would be what would be cooked for breakfast, lunch, and dinner the following day. He would then get up at 4 a.m. Why? The reason still eludes me. And start cutting, chopping, or thawing what needed to be cut, chopped, or thawed for breakfast and lunch. It would exasperate him when the menu was changed without prior intimation. One habit of his that infuriated my maternal grandmother was him saying the grace before meals and crossing himself at least 3 to 4 times before eating. When she would question him why, with a straight face he would say, "Mum, you cooked. I can never be too careful." He was a perfectionist and did not like inefficiency of any kind. Even the furniture would be arranged after time and motion study. Perhaps we're the only house where each knife, and I don't mean the type of knife, but each actual knife, has a name and is used to cut or chop a specified type of food. Each of us have teacups which have our initials on it. He was the only person I knew who needed their spoon and fork to be of the same weight, and the only person I know who would eat a pizza or even a paratha with a knife and fork. Even at 87, he was extremely sharp mentally and would remind me of what needed to be done, the bills that needed to be paid, the investments that needed to be made. He would plan way ahead into the future. In fact, I remember him sitting me down and making me start investing towards my pension and my nest egg at the ripe old age of 18. He was a hard taskmaster and never allowed us to be satisfied with our accomplishments because he was always pushing us to achieve more, to raise the bar higher. Rest in peace. And I know you would have said, like you did scores of times earlier, I'm okay. You take care of mom. Well, Dad, she is in safe hands. In conclusion, I would like to say, when I came into this world, you held my hand. When you left this world, you held mine. Thus, the circle of life was complete. Thank you.
I took him just like most younger brothers take the elder brothers. Like, yes, he's there. However, as I was a lot younger than him, I do not remember engaging in any sibling rivalry or fistfights with him. As a boy, I remember seeing Joe every month putting his entire pay in Mummy's hands for years and years. All this was taken for granted by me. Nothing extraordinary. Joe was doing just what any other person in his place would do. What I want to say, though, is that in better times for all of us, Joe, typical of the man he was, never ever talked of difficult times and what he did. Not once. Another matter of those days, I had completed my schooling, and like all matriculates at that time, I also wanted to join the railways as an apprentice. Joe was against this. He said I should complete my graduation and only thereafter look for a job or employment. I'm not sure, but maybe I must have been angry with Joe at that time. Be that as it may, Joe forcibly sent me to study in SFS College, Nagpur. In due course, I completed my graduation. Did Joe do right by me? Yes, I would think so. However, for Joe, it was no big deal. Just another of the ordinary things my brother Joe did in his life. The surprising thing is that even if he appeared tough and uncompromising, I have seen him help a number of people in his life with their jobs and related issues. He just did it and left it there, did not seek praise or recognition. At the end, I would like to say that my brother Joe was no extraordinary person. He was an ordinary man. He just did things that were rather extraordinary. Thank you, Joe, and rest in peace. You have earned it.
I knew Joe for 55 years. He was a gentleman and was very chivalrous with ladies. He had a large fan following there, from family members to longtime friends like Mrs. Ribello, Mrs. Figueredo, and many others. Joe was very duty conscious and responded to call of duty magnificently every time. Joe was a man of principles and high morals and lived a fearless life with head held high. He was a warm and caring person, though he never showed it. We did not love you, Joe, for all these qualities. We loved you for what you were. You loved life, simple things like the tikka seo, a cup of piping hot tea, and some silly joke. Goodbye, Joe. You will always be remembered with love and fondness.
Dearest Dad, I have known you for over 25 years now. Meeting you for the first time when Noel introduced me to you, I was very impressed by you. After marriage, I got to know you better. I saw in you the loving father that I never had. After the birth of my son, your first grandchild, I remember nights where he wouldn't stop crying and you had to intervene. With your lullabies, he would fall asleep in your arms effortlessly. You cared the same way for all three of your grandchildren. Dad, you were a wonderful person, forever cheerful, forever appreciative, and ever so kind, unforgettable to say the least. I will remember you with great gratitude, appreciating all you have done for us. Very few people are blessed with a father and grandfather like you, and I'm very grateful to be one of them. These are heartfelt sentiments from your grateful daughter-in-law, Shiva Dias.
Amongst one of the very first memories I have of my grandfather, Papa Joe, my personal favorite is from when I was about 3 years of age. To this day, I can picture myself sitting on a high stool beside him on our dining table. I can visualize him feeding me little spoons of rice as he captivates me with his fascinating collection of stories. When I was about 8 years of age, I felt terribly sick and had to be hospitalized immediately. I was in hospital for about a month, 30 days and 30 nights. It may sound unbelievable, but during that time period, my grandfather never ever left my side. He stayed with me in the hospital. Those were dark, long and lonely nights, filled with uncertainty, but he chose to stay strong because of me. In my 10th standard, I asked him to wake me early in the morning so that I could practice mathematics. True to his word, every single morning he woke at 4 a.m., cooked breakfast for me, and sat beside me as I worked out numericals. However, as I grew up, I started seeing my grandfather in a different light. For so long, his only identity had been Papa Joe. Slowly, I began seeing in him the little boy who had lost his father at a young age. I saw in him the young boy who graduated college on a full scholarship and started working immediately after to support his family. I saw in him the devoted son who took care of his widowed mother. I saw in him the loving and caring husband and father that he was. Undoubtedly, he was my Papa Joe, but he also was Joe Dias, a man of undeniable courage, strength and resilience. A man who worked long hours in trains and on stations and carved out a niche for himself in the railways. A man who started out empty but came back full. Joe Dias was a man who could stay hungry, spend sleepless nights or walk miles if it meant keeping his loved ones sound. When he passed away so peacefully a month ago, a friend of mine remarked that I had been incredibly blessed to have him as my grandfather, and I couldn't agree more. As we remember you, our darling Papa Joe, we are so grateful and incredibly fortunate to have had you in our lives as our father and grandfather. Your legacy will live on in your children and grandchildren.
Hello everyone, I am Gordon Alvarez. As my dad Christopher Alvarez is not here, I am reading this note on his behalf for his godfather and uncle, Mr. Joe Dias. The Godfather. Everyone has one. Mine was Joe. I somehow never called him Uncle Joe, for that's who he was, my mom's brother, Joe the railway man. My earliest and most happy memories of him were in Hira House, Bhusawal, where he used to do that magic trick, wave a hairbrush around face down steel container, ask me to make a wish, and lo and behold, there was a Cadbury chocolate when he turned the container over. I used to wait for the weekends for this. Children believe in magic. Till one day, many moons later, I saw him slip the chocolate in. That was that. No more waving of the hairbrush. The magic faded. As the years went by, I came to understand who Joe was as a person. Kind, loving, and always caring. The one quality about him was he always went by the book. Never broke or bent any rules in his professional life. Though he was a senior DRM at Nagpur, I had to wait outside his cabin for a meeting with him. That was when I needed to get an urgent last minute train reservation to Bombay. He never mixed his work environment with family. He could have easily got it done without me coming to his office physically. At that time, I was very upset with the treatment I got. In later years, I realized the value of integrity of work. This is the one quality that set Joe apart from all the other officers in public office I have known. The railway tracks led him all over the many small towns in western Maharashtra. He never turned down a transfer, always followed orders of his superiors. From Bhusawal to Nagpur, the Dias family moved and set up residence. The years roll on. Time and age catch up with everyone. Destiny brought him back to the home he built in Nagpur one last time. Though he is not with us anymore, for me, I will always have one memory of him, fresh and evergreen, of him standing in a banyan on the first floor of Villa Madonna and waving out to me every time I visited him. The tracks have finally led him home. His godson, Quito, Colombia, USA.
I have such fond memories of Uncle Joe. I was his godchild, and he would always make such a great fuss of me whenever we visited. He made us all feel so welcome, and nothing was ever too much trouble for him. When we visited in 1975, when I was 6, he would pretend he needed help with maths, and I would take up his lessons and give him sums to do. When he ran out of fingers, he would take his shoes and socks off and count on his toes. He would say he only had 10 fingers and needed his toes to do the sums. Auntie Gladys would throw him a school bag out of the window when he came back from work, and he would pretend he had just returned from school. Uncle Joe was a great man. I always remember him as being very strong and always looking very smart. He was a devoted family man, and his love for his family was very strong. May God bless you, Uncle Joe, and keep you in his tender care. May eternal light shine upon you, and may your soul rest in peace.
Dear Papa Joe, I met you in 2007 when I was working in Mauritius with Anna. To think that our paths crossing was a coincidence, a fleeting moment in time, would not honor God appropriately. I'm certain he brought Anna and later you into my life and heart for a purpose. Anna immediately felt like family as soon as I arrived to the island. And when we met you, you treated us all as your own children as well. When I remember you fondly, what stands out immediately is your kind, warm presence and big, genuine smile that seemed to be always present on your face. Though we've been half a world apart for more than 10 years now, I often remember you fondly. One of my favorite photos from my 2 years in Mauritius was taken on our catamaran that day while you were visiting. The skies were perfectly blue, sun shining brightly, sparkling on the crystal blue waters of the Indian Ocean. And the lush green hills of that tiny island was on our horizon. You're sitting next to Anna, reclining, taking in the sun, and the expression on your face says it all. The moment and our surroundings were perfect. The day a true gift from God, just as I feel you and Anna were in my life. Joe, I hope heaven looks just like that view from the catamaran that day. I'll be praying for you with anticipation of meeting you in that heaven again someday. Love, your American daughter, Beth.
Dear Uncle Joe, we met very briefly, just twice, but every meet was such that I will never ever forget you or your lovely smile. We met for the first time in Kalyan in 2004. We were so many of us, and yet you knew each one of us by name. The mouth-watering gulab jamuns that you stuffed our tummies with was something I will always remember you for. Next I met you was in Khandeshwar, probably in 2011, but all I have in mind are the pouring Mumbai rains, the aromatic wine, the sumptuous fish, and your jokes. Your ability to joke with such a serious face, it kept us in stitches. You always had a great sense of humor, and there was never ever a dull moment with you. My daughter Aditi, she was really lucky to have met you in Chennai. She loved listening to your stories and learning about the places you visited and have lived in. Your blessings and love will always be cherished by all of us. I was so looking forward to your visit, but I guess that was not to be. I've known you through Anna, and yet I feel like I know you so well. Uncle, we thank you for your hilarious stubbornness, your caring attitude, your selflessness, your love for life, food, and for making us a part of your life. I'm sure you're somewhere looking down upon all of us, refusing to use your cane or your hearing aid, maybe drinking guava juice and cracking jokes. We will always love you and remember you with that large smile.
Uncle, we miss you so very much. You know, our families have known each other for so many years now, ever since you joined our parish. We've met so often on Saturday evenings after the Mass or on the Sunday mornings at the convent chapel. We've had such good times of talking and laughter and shared such good memories. You introduced us to the Haldiram orange burfi, and every time we have that sweet or we see it, we fondly remember you, and that's one of our closest, fondest memories that we have. We are really sorry that you had to leave us so soon, but we know that you're in a much better place and happy with the Lord in heaven. Please intercede for us while we pray for you, and we hope to meet you soon in heaven. Thank you for all the wonderful memories in our lives and for being such a good friend to our family. We love you. We miss you so much.
Dear Joe, it is with a very heavy heart that we said goodbye to you. Each day, as we think about how you enriched our life, I'm sure each of us can write compositions on how richly blessed we are just to know you. As I look back, I can only feel the warmth every time I walked home unannounced. You were always there to welcome me, sitting like a little groom with an impeccable iron shirt and a broad smile on your face, irrespective of whether you could hear me or not. I'd known you for just around 2 years, but those 2 years, there was always a comfortable feeling that you were right on the road behind my house. I guess it was your love for sweets that made us bond a little extra. You never let me leave the house empty-handed. You always had to fill my palms with something or the other, and when I refused you, you made me carry something for the children. I don't remember the time that you have just seen me off near the door, but you always walked me to the outside gate, which I'm sure Anna and Auntie would agree that the maximum walking you would have done in a month. Auntie and yourself, along with Anna, always ensured that I had the best meal that you cook for yourself. Food would miraculously come the days I was most tired, and no one has done this for me. It is with a great sorrow that I think that such a lovely time was short-lived. Not only that, I think it is with great pride that I can claim that I was the last love of your life, which was family approved. Joe, I will always, always cherish you in my heart and carry the love that you have given me for a lifetime. So I'd wait for a time that I would meet you to have the wonderful dance we always spoke about. Till then, I'll carry to your love in my heart. Avril.
I am R.V. Jagirdar, retired DME Central Railway. Late respected Joe Dias was my boss at Nagpur. He was senior DME and I was posted as AAB carriage and wagon under him. I was from loco running and he was from repairs and maintenance. He was very disciplined. He used to fire me at times, but it was for my better future. He was my guru. He was like jackfruit, from outside like horns, but from inside very loving person. I was with him to accompany in the railway hospital when he suffered heart attack. He was having strong willpower. He had great respect for our country. One incident I remember of him, it was 15th August. We all were supposed to attend the flag hosting. He said, Jagirdar, I had bath early in the morning. Without bath attending, flag hosting would be sin. He was master in attending breakdown operation during accidents, derailments. I have high regards for him. I pray Almighty God to rest his soul in eternal peace. Amen.
Didn't know today would be our last, or that I'd have to say goodbye to you so fast. I'm so numb I can't feel anymore. I'm praying you just walk back through that door and tell me that I was only dreaming. You're not really gone as long as I believe. There will be another angel around the throne tonight. Your love lives on inside of me, and I will hold on tight. It's not my place to question, only God knows why. I'm just jealous of the angels around the throne tonight. Always made my troubles feel so small, and you were always there to catch me when I'd fall. In a world where heroes come and go, well, God just took the only one I know. So I'll hold you as close as I can, longing for the day when I see your face again. But until then, God must need another angel around the throne tonight. Your love lives on inside of me, and I will hold on tight. It's not my place to question, only God knows why. I'm just jealous of the angels around the throne tonight, singing hallelujah. I'm just jealous of the angels around the throne tonight.